the South Carolina government argued to the state's Supreme Court to resume using lethal injections, the electric chair and firing squads to execute inmates on death row. News.com has learned that a lawyer representing the office of Governor Henry McMaster argued to the state Supreme Court that the execution methods fit into existing state protocols and that there was no precedent that the death has to be instantaneous or painless. 4 lawyers representing inmates who have run out of appeals argued to the South Carolina Supreme Court that the old electric chair and updated firing squads amount to cruel and unusual punishment, according to the Associated Press. There are currently 33 people on South Carolina death row, but South Carolina has not executed an individual in 13 years because its lethal injection drug expired and companies refused to sell new versions unless they remained anonymous. In 2023, South Carolina passed a shield law to provide anonymity, but lawyers argued to the state Supreme Court that the law is far more secretive than similar legislation in other states. The inmates want information about the drug. South Carolina uses a sedative called pentobarbital, such as when it was manufactured, who supplies the drugs, and if there is evidence that the drug acts the way the company claims it does. Mistakes using lethal injection can cause terrible consequences for the inmate. If the executor does not administer enough of the drug, it can cause significant pain without killing the person. If the dose is too high, the drugs can clump in the bloodstream, causing agony when injected. As for the electric chair, the state Supreme Court justices questioned whether modern evidence had proven that the device, built in 1912, was more painful than thought when it was popularized in the 20th century. Current law in South Carolina requires inmates to be executed by the electric chair unless they choose an alternative method. They also probed lawyers about whether firing squads should be legal, considering they have only been used 3 times in the past 50 years in Utah. The judges were sympathetic that the heart's sudden stop via a bullet is painful, and there is no guarantee the firing squads would hit their intended targets. The court also pushed the lawyers to admit that the arguments were not a stall tactic and that it would be acceptable for the state to move forward with the lethal injections if the government could show that the chemicals match the standards of the federal government and other states. "I want to make sure it is as humane as possible," said Attorney John Bloom in the AP report. The 13-year pause on executions could mean that the execution chambers could face a sudden rush if the state wins its argument. 4 of the 33 death row inmates are suing the state, and 2 others will undergo competency hearings. Prosecutors have added 3 people to death row during this period.